Welcome to the On the Pen, the Weekly Dose podcast, your one-stop shop for obesity medicine news with your host, man on the pen, Dave Knapp. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 8th edition of On the Pen, the Weekly Dose podcast. I am your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Manjaro, Zepbound, Compound. It's what we talk about each and every week. We bring you patient-centric news in the world of obesity medicine, because as we know, all the news that flows out about obesity treatment comes from the medical community or it comes from the investor community. And we just try to help you make sense of everything so that you can have more competent and confident conversations with your medical providing team. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Dave. I am a patient living with the diseases of obesity and type 2 diabetes, getting treatment with GLP-1 medications, and it is a pleasure to be here with you each and every week. Every now and again, we do this podcast live. Today is one such day, so I'd like to welcome everyone watching on the YouTubes. Jennifer, Neo, Dunleary, Mindy, Angie, welcome. Thank you for being here. It is a pleasure to be spending some time with you all today. There's a ton to get into today. Today and most days, it feels like all of the topics that we cover here at On the Pen are in the way of obesity medicine accessibility. Those are the topics of conversation that really dominate patients' minds at this point in the game. There are breakthrough medications that can actually help people live healthier, metabolic lives, fuller, richer lives. The problem is the accessibility to them. And as you all know, it seems like a constant battle is waging to keep people from getting access to these medications. So we're going to get into the stories of the day that matter the most to you. But before we do, I'd like to just let you all know that a really amazing thing happened to On the Pen the last couple months. Back in the fall, late fall, we wrote an article for health.com, and health.com, Health Magazine, asked myself to come out to New York City and film a video that was a follow-up to that article. And I just want to let you all know that that video is now live on their website. So you can check it out in the description of this video, health.com. It's the Beyond Obesity series. And we were honored to be the first ones to be presented with our story presented to the Beyond Obesity segment that they're doing at health.com. And they asked myself to go out there. I also was able to bring along my two sons, and you're going to watch this video on the website at health.com, and you're going to meet my entire family. And so that's something that we haven't done here on the channel before. You haven't met my family before, but you're going to get to meet the Knapp family a little bit if you go check out that article. Again, the link is in the description of the show notes here on the podcast, as well as in the description of the video on YouTube if you're watching there. I highly recommend that you check it out. Listen, my personal story is not something I spend a great deal of time sharing. As you all know, I've really struggled, continue to struggle despite the medication in ways that is, I would say, uncommon for people who are on these medications. But I am thankful for the community that really helps to keep me engaged and focused in my journey and head up and positive. I thank you for all the kind words of support that you all give me on my own personal journey. And they even highlight the On the Pen community in this video. So I hope that you'll go check it out. And then I hope you'll come back and let me know what your thoughts are. If you ever want to give us feedback on the podcast, or if you ever have questions, feel free to email us at hello@onthepen.com, hello@onthepen.com. And you can always get in touch with us that way. So that's amazing news. And I also wanted to, as just sort of a little housekeeping note, let you know that we have an amazing interview coming up later this week. I will drop this as a standalone video and on the podcast. I'm not sure if you've heard this story about a university out of Ottawa, Canada, that is engineering a plant that will have GLP-1 receptor agonist properties. You heard me right. It is a plant that is being engineered to be a GLP-1 receptor agonist. And the very people behind this breakthrough and potentially amazing game-changing potential to increase accessibility to these medications, the people behind this very discovery will be sitting down with me to discuss what they're doing. And I am super excited to bring that story to you. We are just continuing to just nose down and just bring you all of the pertinent information that's going on in the world of GLP-1s. Before we get started in the news, thank you to our sponsor, Roe. If you are not familiar with On the Pen, Roe is the sponsor of this podcast. They are the ones that bring this to us each and every week. They have the Roe Body program. It's a great time to look again at branded medications, with accessibility being what it is. Roe has the team that can help you navigate that insurance debacle with getting these medications approved. So if you haven't looked for a while, haven't had a medical professional that really is adept at figuring this all out, I really strongly recommend that you check out the Roe Body program. You can visit roe.co/OTP, learn more about the Roe Body program, and they will help you fight those insurance battles. And maybe even, like many in the community are discovering, get yourself access to branded medication once again. So thank you to our partners at Roe. Again, that's roe.co/OTP. If you're ever going to start a new medication, you want to make sure that you familiarize yourself with potential side effects. All that information is there, just a couple clicks away. roe.co/OTP. So thank you, Roe. So let's get into it. GLP-1s, we learned this week, may lower the risk of dementia by 45%. Now, this is a amazing study. They often will look at data from the Veterans Administration and sort of take all of the data that they combine there about patients using specific medications and sort of extract really interesting data out of this. So this was JAMA Neurology that looked at 160,000 patients. So it's not a controlled trial, but it's Medicare and VA patients with type 2 diabetes on medications like Ozempic, Victoza, and Trulicity. So we're talking about now some of the older generations of GLP-1, so maybe even not tapping into the full potential here. And again, these are diabetics. They found that the use of these medications in this patient population may reduce the risk of developing dementia by 45%. 45%. The biggest protective effect was seen when GLP-1s were compared to other diabetes drugs. So this isn't just about blood sugar anymore for these diabetics. These medications are showing neuroprotective potential, possibly reducing the risk of things like Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So if further trials confirm this, and we know that we've got a huge study coming from Novo Nordisk on semaglutide, Ozempic and Wegovy later this year in early onset Alzheimer's. If further trials can confirm this data, we're talking a new frontier in the fight against one of the most devastating diseases of aging. Now, I don't know about you, but both of my sets of grandparents lived with a form of dementia or Alzheimer's. Both of my sets of grandparents. And if you've watched the devastating toll that comes with a loved one and their personality changing, or even just the devastating toll of, God forbid, a parent not even recognizing their child anymore, you understand just how devastating this disease can be. And we're going to get into it later in this podcast today, but the U.S. can simply no longer afford to ignore the full body of benefits of these medications. So many in our mainstream culture view these as weight loss shots or skinny jabs. But the fact is that these drugs, while improving weight, are also reducing cardiovascular events. They're stabilizing blood sugars. They are helping people get rid of their sleep apnea. They are showing amazing benefits now that even protect the brain. And yet, these are still priced like luxury items and locked away from the people who need them the most, especially our friends on Medicare. And we'll continue on and sort of come back and loop around to this thought a little bit later in the podcast. The cost barrier to these medications is absolutely crushing accessibility. And we talk about it all the time on this podcast. According to new data from Noom, who had a huge Wall Street Journal ad campaign that dropped today, 64% of people who aren't on a GLP-1 say it's because they can't afford it. So this isn't people that are worried about a little bit of nausea or a little bit of constipation. This is 64% of people saying they don't take it because they cannot afford it. And 87% would even consider it at $499 a month. But if the price drops to $99 a month, 60% say that they would. And so that's just an amazing look at what the potentials are for accessibility if we fix the problem with pricing. Because what we're really extracting from this data is that it is an issue about pricing that is keeping people from getting these medications. And I believe that I misspoke when I said 87% would consider it at $499 a month. 87% say they would not consider it at $499 a month, but 60% say they would at $99 a month, which is a stark contrast from not only what they charge for these medications in the US, but it gives you some insight into the accessibility that's being taken advantage of by the rest of the world who do have better cost access to these medications. These numbers scream what we already knew. They scream that this isn't demand. This is a pricing problem. When 2 out of 3 people say that they'd use a compounded version if the brand name is too expensive, that tells you where people are being pushed, right? To the fringes of the market, right? Not to the branded versions of these medications. The CEO of Noom, his name is Jeff Cook, actually sent me an email this morning sort of outlining this, and you should take a look at this in the Wall Street Journal. It's a full page ad that sort of kind of hits back against Lilly and Novo's ads from the last couple of months. His idea is pretty simple, and I think it's an interesting concept, and hopefully he'll come on the program to share a little bit more about this. But basically what Jeff Cook is proposing is that if a drug costs 2 times what the global average price is, that the FDA would allow 503A pharmacies and FDA regulating outsourcing facilities, 503Bs, to manufacture affordable alternatives. So this wouldn't require a new law, just a policy shift or an executive order, President Trump. It's a market-based solution to a market failure, and it cuts through the noise. We need transparency, we need accessibility, and we need some freaking common sense. Some common sense when it comes to these medications. As I mentioned before, other countries in the world are benefiting from these because there's cost accessibility, while people are left on the fringes here in the United States, where most of the development of this stuff happens. So the rest of the world continues to benefit in ways that many Americans who are left on the fringes don't. So this is really interesting coming from, again, Jeff Cook, the CEO of Noom, and we will keep you posted on this. I hope that progress is made. We've put forth our own ideas over at policysforthepeople.com about transparency in this whole drug shortage process. There just needs to be some serious reform and just a shred of common sense added to these policies. Meanwhile, one of the interesting stories from yesterday is that we learned that Eli Lilly, my chair is like extra squeaky today as I move around, drive me nuts, in fact, but I digress. Yesterday, we learned that Eli Lilly, in addition to the lawsuits that they filed against Strive and Empower Pharmacies, dropped a lawsuit against a med spa in their own backyard in Indianapolis, Indiana. This is kind of interesting. Essentially, what Lilly claims is happening here at this med spa is they're essentially taking a 15 milligram shot of Zepbound or Mounjaro, and they are breaking open the pens, extracting the medication, and then repackaging it in smaller doses and selling it to their patients and selling it to them through marketing that alleges that it's the branded medication. It's pretty wild, huh? Now, interestingly, I have actually heard of this for a couple of years now. I've heard of this type of thing being done at the pharmacy level. But I think that one of the interesting things here is that once you crack one of these open, they're no longer sterile. Like, we're talking about injecting things into your body. So for those who constantly wonder if this is at all related to patient safety, you have to buy the argument to some extent. Some of these rogue cowboys out there that are pulling nonsense like this are really putting patients at a significant amount of potential harm. And I think that is disgusting. I think that anytime there is a money grab that does not consider first the safety of people, it's disgusting. And we know that is happening. And so that's an interesting story dropping out of Indianapolis, and just sort of another thing that highlights Lilly's contention that this is also about patient safety. So what else is going on in the world of GLP-1s besides rogue cowboys breaking apart pens and selling it? Novo Nordisk. So one of the key parts of accessibility is just the expansion of manufacturing capacity. And could two companies really keep up with the demand in the near term? You've seen some major acquisitions Novo Nordisk has made, Catalent being the main one. We covered that all last year. That deal was consummated at the beginning of the year. Novo Holdings purchased a company called Catalent, which is a big manufacturer of generic drugs. Novo Nordisk, which is underneath Novo Holdings, netted 3 major finish and fill plants that expanded the manufacturing capacity of Novo Nordisk, who, for those listening who don't know, they make Ozempic and Wegovy. And they also, the next injectable to hit the market, the next game changer, is going to be called CagriSema. It's going to have some other brand name. I think we've speculated on what that might be. I don't have my notes with me, but whatever they call it, it's the next injectable to hit the market. So how will they meet this demand? Well, they are expanding production in Brazil for ex-US markets. So they announced a $1.09 billion investment to expand its plant in Brazil and boost production of GLP-1s like Ozempic and Wegovy, which is a smart move, obviously, for Novo Nordisk to meet that ex-US demand. But some of the most egregious pricing compared to the rest of the world happens to be with Ozempic and Wegovy, as I hold up the Manjaro pen. Ozempic and Wegovy, pens everywhere here, because we are, in fact, on the pen. Hey, did y'all catch, by the way, this past week we dropped an interview with the CEO of Fractal Health? This was our second sit down with him, and Fractal Health is actually working to get people off the pen by some really interesting endoscopic outpatient procedures. They got 2 of them, Revita and Rejuva. If you did not check that out, you have got to go back and watch both interviews with Harith Rajagopalan, the CEO of Fractal Health. They're working on 2 things that could be absolute game changers and maybe take just a little bit of the demand off of these pens and help with the accessibility and help with long-term weight maintenance after you sort of reach your goal with these medications. But I digress. So very interesting move by Novo Nordisk to increase their manufacturing capacity. Of course, Lilly has announced billions, $20-some billion in investments in expanding manufacturing in the U.S., which we applaud, right? I think that credit where credit is due, as long as they actually follow through with the building of these manufacturing plants over the next few years, and business needs don't suddenly change. Like, I hope this wasn't just a cozying up to the new administration, who has obviously a massive push to bring American manufacturing back to the shores of the United States. But if this is a real thing, I really do applaud Lilly for moving back and repatriating the manufacturing of their drugs. I think we need to see this as a trend, and I hope that Lilly is setting that trend, and kudos to them. So we love to see expanded manufacturing capacity in the U.S., but it sort of bleeds into this greater conversation about what is going on with the Trump administration saying no to Medicare coverage. Now, I know this can get very partisan and ugly very quick, but we're going to try to stay above the fray here at On the Pen, and we're just going to talk about what I believe could be going on here. So despite the science, despite the demand, despite the potential for these medications to really change the game in healthcare in the United States, the Trump administration declined the Biden administration's proposal at the end of Joe Biden's term to allow Medicare to cover obesity medications under Part D plans. Now, this was devastating. This was devastating because this could have had major implications. But what might be sort of happening behind the scenes here? I want to get into that a little bit because I don't want everyone to feel like all hope is lost. One of the things that I think and again, with this administration, a lot of this stuff is stuff you have to sort of deduct, theorize, or even speculate on. But one of the things that we do know is that Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk were banking on approval for Medicare for obesity medicine. How do we know that? Well, this information on Medicare not adding this was dropped last Friday after the close of market. Markets opened back up Monday. What happened to Lilly and Novo? Right. And that happened, I realize, across the markets, but Novo and Lilly stock definitely took a hit. Why? Because investors and Lilly and Novo were banking on this happening, and what a boon for their stock that would be to open up Medicare gates to obesity coverage. I think what this could have been, though, is by not adding now these drugs to Medicare, it could force Lilly and Novo back to the drawing board on how they're pricing their GLP-1 medications. And it could be a move by this administration to say, hey, not so fast. We'll add it to Medicare, but not until you come back to the table with better pricing on these medications. And so I'm hoping that that is what the case is. I'm trying to maintain my optimism because this is such an important issue for accessibility, especially to our friends on Medicare. And so I'm hoping that in the background, we sort of see that come together, and we do see Lilly Novo come back to the table, this administration come back to the table, and at the end of the day, cheaper branded GLP-1 medications. The capacity is being expanded. We talked about that. We've talked about that a lot on the pen. The capacity is being built to meet the demand, and even if it isn't, perhaps we bring in the 503Bs to supplement what Lilly and Novo can't do, but something has to happen, and we're going to stay on top of it at On the Pen. Little quick channel announcement is that I will actually be in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks. I'm hoping to get the chance to talk to some of these power players in the industry. I'll actually be there along with the Obesity Action Coalition. So I'm hoping that we're able to sit down and have some really important conversations with some really important people. And so we'll obviously keep you posted on there. That's why you need to subscribe wherever you're watching, listening. Make sure that you subscribe, download the podcast, keep it in your queue. If you're watching on YouTube, you need to hit the subscribe button and you need to hit the bell for notifications, because we're going to keep you up to date on everything that matters to you as patients living with the disease of type 2 diabetes, obesity. We have moved from this sort of position at On the Pen of just bringing the news to really trying to impact policy and change, because the last thing that I am going to allow happen as this platform grows, as our voices grow, is for the community, the marginalized in this community, to be left out of the conversation. And that is 100% a focus and a commitment from On the Pen, is to fight for you in areas where we are given a voice to fight. We will be fighting for you. We will be fighting for accessibility, and we will be fighting for policies that expand that accessibility in a responsible way. And so that's what I got for you this week. I hope that you find this information helpful. If you do, I hope you'll share it somewhere. You can also go to onthepen.com, scroll to the bottom and sign up for email alerts, where we'll send you email updates when breaking news happens. We write a lot of articles. I hope that you'll go over and check out that article at Health Magazine. That is again, I bawled all morning. I'm not going to lie. To just kind of hear I think the thing is, everybody has a story and everybody wants their story to be told. And part of what we try to open this platform up to, and we always have since the day that we created On the Pen, is to open this platform for people to share their stories. We do every other Friday night panel. Our friend Sabrina leads that, where patients are able to tell their stories. On our Thursday night show, we have community guests that come on and share their stories. I got to share my story. And I'm so thankful to the folks at health.com for allowing me to do that. Again, you can check that out in the description, and come back and let me know in the comments what you thought of that. Let them know, email them, let them know what you thought of that video, especially if you'd like to see more. But thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't do it without you. We will catch you all on the next one.